Okay, ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, for today's Planning Commission. Start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Janet, would you be kind enough to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic by which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Janet, will you do roll call, please?
Sure thing. Commissioner Santa Cruz? Commissioner Santa Cruz?
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Here.
Commissioner Gupta?
Here.
Commissioner Ketchum? Here. Chairman Hansen?
Present.
And staff is represented by Monowitz and Fox.
Thank you very much. Do we have any oral communications? Does anybody wish to speak to the Planning Commission for items that are topics that are not on today's agenda?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, then we'll proceed to consideration of the minutes. Do we have any changes, revisions, or acceptance for the minutes?
There was some revisions made and I've made those, but thank you so much for your feedback.
So we have revised minutes.
I move that we approve the revised minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Can I get roll call, please? Commissioner Ketchum?
Yes.
Commissioner Santa Cruz?
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Aye.
Chairman Hansen?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those who are the first time ever being in a planning commission, I'll outline how we do things and proceed. Normally at our meetings, what we have to do is an introduction to the topic, but done by staff. After that, the commission has an opportunity to ask questions of staff. Next, we'll go to if a presentation is desired by the applicant, followed by questions by the Planning Commission. Then we'll open it up for the public to speak. Today we'll allow 5 minutes per person. After that, we will close the public session, get back to the commission where we will discuss the item and then determine what we'll do next after the discussion. So thank you very much for your time and patience. Today we have a consent item. Does anybody wish to pull that off?
I have some questions about that.
Okay. So Janet, can you read in the item, please?
Certainly. Consent item number 1, owner, California State Parks, applicant, Andrew Hall Resource Conservation District, file number PLN 2020-00033, location, Butte State Park, 4.5 miles south of Pescadero, and the project planner is Renee Ananda.
So Kumkum, you just have questions or you want the whole presentation?
No, I just have the questions for the applicant. Is the applicant here?
Yes, the applicant is Andrew Hall. I want to say I saw him online, but now I can't find him. Okay, here you go.
Janet, I see him in participants. You
I
see?
see him now. Gonna move him over to the analyst. And Andrew, can you hear us?
I think he's muted. Oh, there.
Morning, this is Kevin with UCSF Medical Center for Women's Health Primary Care, telephone number 415.
Andrew Hall?
We have Andrew.
Yeah,
Should I go ahead with my question, Andrew?
Oh,
there you go.
yes, go ahead.
Okay. The way I'm reading the report, I may be misunderstanding some things. I get the feeling that none of the two boring holes that were made were kind of successful. So my first question really is to understand what are the different steps you take in building this well, like just briefly, like the way I'm understanding it is the first thing which was already done in November of 2018 is exploratory hole. Is that
So
correct?
yeah, correct. And during that time, basically what happened was there was a explosion in the well that prevented the driller and the engineer from running sufficient tests to meet California Title 22 requirements to determine if it would be meet public drinking code.
Okay. So is that going to be repeated? Is that what we are trying to do again?
Yes. So in this case, we're asking for permission to re-drill the well and to run these tests. And assuming it meets these tests, we would install a well upon completion.
Okay. And
the
just
first,
for my, go ahead.
I was just going to say the first well did show signs of productivity and of likely would meet water quality standards, but due to a small natural gas explosion in a well from a welder that was working on disconnecting a piece on the rig, they were unable to complete testing.
Okay. For my curiosity, how wide are these holes, like in diameter or?
Beaucoup, do you want a full presentation? There's a difference between a question and actually going into this in depth.
Yeah.
Okay. If
It's
If
not,
that's what-
you want a presentation?
Because that would be kind
I'm
of like
just
a
trying
pulley.
to understand the
Let's have a
rationale behind some of these
No
decisions.
problem. Let's
Yeah.
go-
Either way, I'm fine, but I'm just curious that I'm understanding it right before voting
You
on
need
it.
to understand it right, so can I
Okay.
have to do a presentation of
Right.
item one?
Okay. Appreciate that, Chair. Sorry, Andrew. Yes.
Yes.
How big are these holes? Just for my curiosity. It's a very fascinating project. So.
Yeah. In the report that I'm actually, we didn't have time to get the actual engineer on the line, but it's, from my understanding, it's an 8-inch bit.
8-inch. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No, that gives me a feel whether it's like a very small one or a larger one. Okay.
Yeah.
And that has been patched up now, right?
Yes.
Closed.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
It was
All right.
they sealed it up per
Okay.
county code.
Okay. So you mentioned that the first hole did show some promising results, whatever you could do. So this next one is being drilled closer to that?
Yes, it would be in the same general location.
So same general location. Just one more question is that were any such activities done before on this parcel?
No other exploratory drills have been performed on the parcel that I'm aware of.
Okay.
or
All right.
wells have been installed. Yeah, it's all right currently operating from surface water diversion in the Little Butno Creek.
Okay. And what would be the next step if this board is successful?
The next step would be we would have to come back to the commission requesting approval to build a system that would connect it to the state park's water supply distribution network. Currently, we are applying for funding to complete a project we received funding for, which is to increase the storage capacity of the park, building a new water tank, and upgrading their water supply infrastructure and their general pertinences. But that CDP will be submitted at a later date once we have funding for the project.
Understood. Understood. Okay. And so from this past experience, something was learned, so we wouldn't have the same issue in terms of that explosion or something that happened, right?
Yeah. Yes. Correct. That was an error that normally doesn't occur.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'll be prepared. They, if it did occur, they re-drill it.
Okay. Okay. And again, it would take about a week to do, just like the previous ones, or is that longer?
I think it depends on how long they're working, but it's a 2 to 3 day process generally.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. I have no more questions, Chair Hansen.
Would any of the other commissioners want a full presentation at this point?
No.
No. Okay. Any further questions? Not seeing any. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve item number 1 as it was sent to us in the document.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye, followed by a roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Kenneth, want to do roll call?
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Ketchum,
Aye.
Commissioner Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chairman Hansen.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Chairman Hansen, quick question. We didn't open public comment for this item and ask people to speak. Did we want to do that, or were we okay moving forward?
I missed, yes. I will entertain any public comments. And
At this time, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Sherry Golistan, who is going to go ahead and go over the details for public comment.
yes, please, let's do that.
Sherry?
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Chair Hansen. For those that are attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we are now opening public comment for this item. If you're joining on Zoom, you may click raise hand in order to be called for this item. For those that are participating by telephone, you may press *9 to use this feature. And I don't see any hands raised. I will just turn it back over to Janet in case there are any written comments.
Janet, you're muted.
Chairman Hansen, there was no written comments for this item.
Thank you very much. So I'm sorry to let this go out of order.
Can I do a roll call to close public comment?
Please do.
Commissioner Santa Cruz,
Yes.
Commissioner Ketchum,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Chairman Hansen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to the regular agenda, item number 2. Janet, will you please read it in?
Regular owner applicant, MROSD, post, file number PLN 2019-00258, location, various. And the project planner is Melissa Ross.
Good morning. Let me share my screen for the presentation. Janet, I have this disabled.
Hold on just a moment. You should be able to just go ahead and turn it on.
Go ahead and check it now. It should be activated.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, good morning. Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District and Peninsula Open Space Trust have applied for a local coastal program amendment to amend 2 requirements within the zoning and subdivision regulations. And I would just like to note that this LCP text amendment is only one of 2 public processes. If this text amendment is approved and certified by the Coastal Commission, public agencies are still required to submit for land division permits, which are a separate subsequent public process where public recreation, agriculture, and sensitive habitat protections can then be balanced on a project level. The purpose of the amendment is to resolve an inconsistency between language found in the coastal regulations, namely the Coastal Act, the county's local coastal program, and the Coastal Development District. As well as in our zoning and subdivision regulations through the PAD and RMCZ zoning districts. In addition, to continue to require the same land division process and overall agricultural and open space policy conformance while facilitating public recreation for public agencies proposing land divisions for such purposes. So these text amendments that are requested by the applicants are only applicable to public agencies when they propose land divisions for public recreation purposes. I would note that MidPen is a public agency, but Post is not a public agency, they are a nonprofit. So in order for the applicants to take advantage of the text amendments if they are approved, MidPen would need to be the applicant on future subdivision permits for public recreation. The California Coastal Act was established with basic goals, and one of these goals is to maximize public access to and along the coast and maximize public recreational opportunities in the coastal zone, consistent with sound resources conservation principles and constitutionally protected rights of private property owners. To implement these goals, the Coastal Act, the county's local coastal program, and the Coastal Development Zoning District all share the same language for the definition of development. This means that coastal development permits are required for any other division of land, and this includes subdivisions and lot line adjustments, except where the land division is brought about in connection with the purchase of such land by a public agency for public recreational use. So these coastal regulations have made an exception for this specific purpose for public agencies proposing public recreational use and subdividing or lot line adjusting properties to do so. The scope of the text amendment is not to remove the requirement for zoning or subdivision permits. Instead, it's to grant relief from 2 requirements that are found in the Planned Agricultural District and Resource Management Coastal Zone and associated subdivision sections in order to facilitate public recreation consistent with the coastal regulations and as a compatible use to agriculture and open space. The text amendments requested will remove the requirement for a public agency to grant to the county an agricultural or conservation easement. It will also remove a maximum 5-acre parcel size for parcels divided for non-agricultural and non-residential uses. The easement poses a difficulty to the applicants when securing funding, such as California Conservancy grants, for coastal protection and restoration improvements. And this includes public recreation, agriculture, and wildlife protections. Since public agencies are required to go through their own public process to adopt and maintain general plans, including agricultural, public access, and sensitive habitat protections consistent with Coastal Act regulations, it's of little purpose in having one public agency grant to another public agency an easement, given that each public agency has similar coastal responsibilities and enforcement through their own legislative bodies. Removal of the 5-acre maximum parcel size is to provide a public agency more flexibility to create parcels that are functional for public recreation purposes, including park ranger housing, and are still protective of agricultural lands and sensitive habitats. This is a map currently of the planned agricultural district and resource management zoning. The shaded area in green and light blue are the two zoning districts. The darker green is the PAD and the lighter is the RMCZ zoning district. The hashed areas represent public landowners, including Midpen and Post, though Post is a nonprofit. We've included it in this map. The public agencies within the project area are listed on the right-hand side. And if the text amendment is approved, these public agencies may take advantage of the language, but only if they are subdividing or lot line adjusting properties for the purpose of public recreation. So for example, Water and Sanitary District, if they were to subdivide land or lot line adjust property boundaries for infrastructure, they would not be able to use the text amendments. Approval and certification of the text amendments change only the zoning and subdivision regulations language. If the text amendments are certified, public agencies are still required to obtain the appropriate land division and development permits from the county, which is the separate and subsequent process. An example process for a subdivision in the planned agricultural district is outlined here. Before a subdivision application can be submitted, a density analysis needs to be processed. This is the determination, given the characteristics of the parcel, on whether there is a potential to subdivide land. If there are enough density credits, an applicant can then file a subdivision application. Density credits control land division and land use density. This remains unchanged as a result of the text amendments. Similarly, the process for subdivision remains unchanged. So we are still required to have applicants go through a density credit analysis. We are still required to request or still required to have master land division plans from applicants. These plans are ultimately how a parcel will be divided, an agricultural use, a non-agricultural use, and other uses on the properties. The Agricultural Advisory Committee and other committees are still required review, and other agricultural and sensitive habitat policy protections also remain required. The Planning Commission still retains its ability to condition projects if this text amendment were approved and certified. And additionally, with the removal of the easement and the 5-acre maximum, if the text amendments are approved, the county still retains its ability to review a public agency's easement with a private landowner for conformance with our general plan and other agricultural and sensitive habitat protections. And we still retain the ability to review the proposed parcel configurations and the uses on each of those properties. Staff had an early consultation meeting with the Coastal Commission in December of 2019. We reviewed the text amendments and the CEQA process, and the Commission did not have any concerns, so they did not raise any concerns during or after that meeting. Subsequently, the county had attended the San Mateo County Farm Bureau and Agricultural Advisory public meetings in January of this year, and in February, we attended the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Committee and Midcoast Community Council meetings. Separately, the applicant had also reached out to Farm Bureau, Ag Advisory, PMAC, Midcoast Community Council, and Sustainable Pescadero last year, in addition to attending the meetings that county staff had attended. Staff has received multiple comment letters regarding the text amendments, some in support and some in opposition. Those in support noted that there's still a public review process resulting from the text amendments, or it is unchanged, that the text amendments provide consistency across regulations, and that they constitute a de minimis change, that it is more likely that the Pescadero community could achieve the goals of having trails from Pescadero and Butno State Park to the ocean, that this facilitates the opportunity for landowners to purchase farmland, retaining farmland in private ownership, and it will benefit rangeland production, keeping rangeland in the hands of ranchers. Some comments in opposition were regarding unintended consequences of public agencies and land divisions. Staff would note that the amendments are narrow and that the land divisions remain controlled through the availability of density credits, and only public agencies proposing land divisions with the purpose of public recreation can take advantage of the text amendments if approved. That the timeline for public review is insufficient and that the project should be tabled until in-person meetings can be held. The applicant has met with the various committees and councils on multiple occasions in addition to staff's attendance at the respective community and council meetings. Additional public comment opportunities during this process will be before the board as well as the California Coastal Commission. And separately, the permits that are required if this amendment is approved will also have their own separate public review process. There was a note that environmental review should be undertaken. Staff has performed its environmental review and will rely on the Coastal Commission's functional equivalent review as allowed under the California Environmental Quality Act. That the easement is necessary because Mid-Penn's mission is not solely the protection of agriculture. While this is true, the district's mission is multifaceted. The district has an adopted coastal service plan that identifies permanent policies that the district must enforce. And that includes that when acquiring land in agricultural use, the acquisition shall be subject to continued use by the owner or operator, and that all agricultural land which is not needed for recreation or for the protection and vital functioning of a sensitive habitat will be permanently protected for agriculture. And finally, consider alternatives that retain the easement requirement and minimize to the extent practicable all recreational usage. The alternative text proposed is counter to the Coastal Act's goals of maximizing public access and public recreation in the coastal zone. Public recreation is a compatible use to agriculture. The policies and public process that are in place and will remain in place, coupled with the county's continued ability to review development projects for agricultural and sensitive habitat protections, and the applicant's adopted coastal service plan will ensure the balance between agricultural uses and public recreation on lands proposed for division. And again, regarding the environmental review, staff completed its review and will rely on the Coastal Commission's functional equivalent CEQA review. And finally, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the LCP amendment subject to Coastal Commission certification, and that the Planning Commission recommend that the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution directing staff to submit the LCP amendment for Coastal Commission certification. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. So we'll start off with the commissioners. We'll start off with Kum. Do you have any questions of staff?
More than question, I just have a comment. I did have questions, but Melissa, your presentation was great, answered my questions. So I have no further questions at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramirez, any questions?
Yeah, I do. With regards to the meetings, so there was 14 meetings in total, 4 with the Farm Bureau. How well attended were those meetings?
There were 4 meetings that the planning staff had attended. There 11 or 10 or 11 meetings the applicant had attended separately without staff. That was their public outreach. At county's attendance, there were quite a few people in the room at each of the meetings. They were well attended.
Okay. So would you say that then, I mean, the public is well aware of this this project and we're, you know, what we're trying to do with this?
We have followed the same process that we typically do for these types of projects, which is the public notification for each of the committees, as well as the public notification for the Planning Commission, and it will be again for the board. And I would note that if this is approved, the subsequent development projects that the public agency must apply for will also be notified to the public, and there will also be additional review at the agencies and the committees and council meetings as well.
Okay, so what you're saying is, so today's meeting is not the last place where the public will have a chance to be informed or give their own opinion. Am I correct?
That is correct. There will be subsequent meetings through this process as well as the permit process.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Santa Cruz, any questions?
I have just one question to Renee. If this project, what I've seen is it's just to resolve inconsistency in the language, and it doesn't remove requirements of the zoning, what would be the adverse negative if we approve this as submitted in terms of the people living in the area?
So the question of unintended consequences is, I'll put it this way. In order for any public agency to subdivide land, whether it's, or to do a land division, whether it's subdividing land or doing a lot line adjustment to adjust boundaries, they must have on each parcel the required density credits. So if a parcel is not large enough or the topography is such that it's steeply sloped and there's only one density credit on that parcel through our density analysis, that property cannot be subdivided. It cannot be subdivided before the text amendment. It cannot be subdivided after the text amendment. So additional subdivisions or lot line adjustments will not be possible. If a property does have multiple density credits available, then it can be subdivided, but is still required to go through our regular process of public review, of the county's review for agricultural protections, for sensitive habitats, to make sure that we have the balance between public recreation and the other uses on the property. There is public process for that. There is also review by the Ag Advisory Committee and public process at that hearing as well. Does that help answer the question?
Oh, yes, Melissa, that was a very nice question. But let me add a follow-up question is, means that if we approve this process, this project as requested, it will be like easing and facilitating any other type of constructions in that area, not only for agricultural purpose, but for any other purpose. Is that correct?
It only relieves 2 criteria in the regulations. It's just the easement and the maximum parcel size. Everything else in the zoning regulations and through the subdivision regulations remains unchanged.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ketchum, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Melissa, for the excellent presentation. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant have any presentation or comments to the commission?
Good morning, commissioners. This is Mike Williams with Mid-Peninsula Open Space District. The only thing I will add to Melissa's presentation is that any future land division applications, as Melissa pointed out, are required to go through the county's public review process, as well as Mid-Pen's own public review process, which includes committee meetings, often on site, Farm Bureau consultations. And then this process would be again repeated when Mid-Pen plans public trails on those properties. That's all I wanted to add to Melissa's presentation.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant? I see no one. Okay. We'll now proceed to public comment. Do we have anybody who wishes to make comments? Janeth?
I don't see any hands raised at the moment, but I am going to have my colleague Sherry Goldston explain the process again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Chair Hansen. We're now opening public comment for item number 2. For those that are joining on Zoom, please click raise hand in order to be called for public comment. As a reminder to those joining by phone, you may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. And so far, I don't see any hands raised. I do see one hand raised now for BJ. BJ, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Give me just a second while I start the timer.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay.
You may begin.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners and Commissioner Hansen. I appreciate you letting me speak on this issue. I'd just like to make a correction, if I could, in all due respect to Melissa, but we don't feel that there has been public meetings. I'm the president of the Farm Bureau, and this was brought before us in January, and none of us really understood it at that meeting, and that's why I tabled it so we could talk more about it. February's meeting, we wanted to talk about it. The two principals from Post did not even show up to our meeting, so we couldn't really discuss it on both applicants. And we didn't have that many people there. Our March meeting was full house. We had probably 40 people at that meeting, but that was because every year for the last 25 years, we have corned beef dinner at that meeting. And that's why there was a lot of people there, but a lot of them didn't understand it at all. And it was confusing. And the 6 meetings they're claiming they had at the Agriculture Advisory, I believe they were listening in on the letter that we were trying to propose to the county. It was not a public meeting. It was discussion and not input from either applicants. So that's kind of confusing, and we don't feel that it's been fair as far as getting our point across. And it's very important to us as agriculture, and we've got a lot more questions we'd like to ask, and we'd like to get the answers for them. And we do feel that there is alternatives, and we've been kind of turned away on that. But I think it's important that we talk about it because this is the future of agriculture. And to have trails through prime ground, I think we're asking for a problem. I think that we have to cherish that ground and not let the public in there because of, look at this virus that's going on. It's going to change the way we're farming. It's going to change a lot of things for all of us. And we don't know what the future is here. Other things could come up. So we're trying to protect the land, the grower, our workers, and our crops. And it's very important. And there's a lot of hiking trails in the grazing land that's been proposed. There's a lot of trails that probably not even being used because they're not ready. There's a lot of trails out there. There's no shortage of trails. And we feel that we need a better chance to explain this more, negotiate with Midpen. We do have an MOU with them. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with them and try to work this out. Post has it usually puts an easement on your property, and that's for perpetuity. We've always had a problem with that because we don't know what's in the future. And look what's happening right now. And now they want to change the rules. And what's going to be next? What are the rules they're going to want to change down the road here to suit them? And it's not the benefit of agriculture. They're using agriculture for this, but it's not benefiting agriculture, in my opinion. And I think that we have to take more look at this, get more public hearings, and get a fair process to this thing, because we're not being treated fair in this at all. It's pretty much been a push it right through. And the PMAC meeting we attended, the three of us from the board attended. They asked the applicant what the county felt they think it's going to go through. Oh, they were very confident. And there was things that we learned at that meeting we never heard at a farm bureau meeting. And one of the problems was the south end of the Cloverdale Ranch that they want to give to state parks. That's a watershed for the coast. The whole coast agriculture relies on that watershed down there. And if public gets to find out those Hidden Valley lakes and they start getting into them, these growers could be cut off from shipping because of the Food Safety Act. And that's very important. And I think that's going to become more and more important. So we appreciate letting me talk, and we hope that you take consideration and let us continue negotiating this until we can come up with a better solution for both of us. With that, thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, BJ. I do see one more hand raised. It's from a phone caller with a 415 area code ending in 489. I will now unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking.
And please identify yourself.
This is Ron Sturgeon, and good morning, commissioners, and Ms. Ross and Mr. Williams. I just want to point out that I'm not as reassured about future public process being all that adequate or comforting, in that what's before you today has not gone through the Midpen, the district's public review process. That is a process that is generally thoroughgoing, and I think what you have before you suffers as a consequence from not having been vetted via that process. I think that you've been presented in writing with anything else I might add, so I'll end it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised at the moment, but I will just give a few more moments in case there are others that would like to speak. I now see a hand raised for Zoe Christine Tucker. Zoe, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for listening to this presentation this morning. It's a very important one. Make no mistake, the pressure to develop and exploit the natural resources of the San Mateo coast and the coast of California remain unabated. Fortunately, here in our region, thanks to the passage of the California Coastal Act back in the 70s and the subsequent passage of our local coastal program here in San Mateo County, we have some very significant and powerful tools for protecting the natural resources of the San Mateo coast. On the front lines of that protection effort has been the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, the Peninsula Open Space Trust, and the agriculture community working together along with the county to protect and preserve the ag lands, the significant and historic ag lands, and the natural resources that we all value here. Thankfully, our coast has not been carved up and ruined like that of Southern California. In my opinion, this action that's being requested of you today is simply to streamline the ability of Post and Mid-Pen to do the job of protecting these important ag lands and natural resources in public ownership in perpetuity. In any way we can facilitate this kind of effort, it benefits the public. So I encourage you today to support the staff's recommendations to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they approve the requested LCP amendment and recommend that the Board of Supervisors adopt the resolution in attachment A. I've been on the Mid-Pen board now for more than a year and have watched our staff work diligently with the agricultural community to build relationships, to listen, to respond, and to act in good faith. And I believe that that effort has been ongoing and will continue in the future. So with that, I will end my comments and say thank you both to Melissa, to Mike Williams, and other staff that's worked so hard on this comprehensive effort before you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. I don't see any more hands raised for this item, but as a reminder, we are on agenda item number 2. If you would like to speak, you may raise your hand now. And for those joining by phone, you may press *9 for this feature.
Janet, this is Dan Olstein at Post. May I say a few words?
Chairman Hansen? Well, let's see. We would have to close public comment first. And then...
Now, are you wish to speak as a public member or as a panelist?
I guess that would be as the project applicant. So I apologize that I missed that opportunity earlier, and so I defer to you as to when the best time for me to do that is.
Probably at this point, we'll get an opportunity to react to the public comment, both for the panelists and for staff. So I would wait until then, unless you have a very personal thing that you're not representing your group.
That's fine. I'll wait.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Sherry, do we have?
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised for this item. I'll just turn it back to Janet in case there are any written comments before you close the public hearing.
Thank you, Sherry. I have not received any new comments, written comments. I shared with the commissioners everything I received yesterday, and that's also available online.
So, Janet, I'm not seeing any more hands up. So entertain a motion to close the public portion, please.
I move to close
Second.
the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Roll call?
Commissioner Santa Cruz?
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ketchum?
Yes.
Chairman Hansen?
Yes. Okay, thank you. So does staff have any comments based on what the public has submitted that they would like to address?
Thank you, Chair Hansen. This is Steve Monowitz, Director of the department, and I will let Melissa fill in anything I might miss, but I just would like to respond to some of the comments that BJ and Mr. Sturgeon raised. You know, as Melissa explained, we've followed our typical process for LCP amendments. We've provided the appropriate notice. We've been to the appropriate advisory committees, and we're just one step along the way to getting to the Coastal Commission, where there'll be additional hearings. So in my view, I don't think that the process from the county's perspective has been deficient, but I also understand that BJ and Ron don't feel like the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District fulfilled their public hearing procedures. So my suggestion would be, if you have questions about that, that we give Mid-Pen Open Space District an opportunity to respond to concerns about their process. And that's all the comments I have at this point.
Okay. Melissa, you have any follow-up?
No additional comments.
Okay. Does the applicant said they would like to have a comment follow-up?
Thanks. I guess maybe before I go, I'll see if Mike wants to address Steve's specific comment there. I see he put his video on.
Our process, we had an on-site meeting on a project in October with the executive team of the Farm Bureau. And then in November, we presented it to the full Farm Bureau board. And at that meeting, we also informed the Farm Bureau that the county would be scheduling a meeting to present the text amendments. And that meeting happened in January that Melissa attended, Mid-Pen and Post attended. As a point of clarification to BJ's comment, there on the Cloverdale Ranch property, there was no discussion of a transfer to state parks. There was a discussion that Chris Spohr, who is the Santa Cruz State Parks Director, we had met with, and he had expressed an interest in a trail from Butano State Park through Cloverdale to Pigeon Point Lighthouse. In the vicinity where there's an existing trail that Post manages, the Wilbur's Watch Trail. And so this discussion was about a trail potentially in the future across the Cloverdale property, not a transfer to state parks. As far as some of the other meetings we attended, there were Farm Bureau meetings where there was a posted agenda item, but neither Post or the district was informed. I did happen to show up and attend, but Post was not invited to that meeting. So it was kind of hard for them to be there. And those are the only comments that I think I want to make at this point in time.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you, Commissioner. Mike clarified a couple of the points that I was going to mention, and so I'll forego those. I wanted to speak a little bit generally about Post's role in protecting agriculture and working in partnering with the agricultural community for over 30 years to protect farmland on the San Mateo coast. We placed our first conservation easement on a farm property in 1991. And we've been helping to steward in partnership with farmers, farmland up and down the San Mateo coast for 30 years since then, and including holding a lot of conservation easements as well as working with lessees on farmland that we own. What this regulatory amendment would allow us to do in support of farmland is be able to transfer ultimately an additional 400 acres of farmland that we currently own and lease to farmers that is part of larger properties. And so we see this as something that has a real benefit for farming overall on the coast side, and to farmers who we know are eager to own the land that they've been stewarding so well for many years. Without these regulatory amendments, though, the land, which is the farmland that we own, which is part of these much larger pieces, is just out of reach. The cost is prohibitive for a lot of farmers. So our goals are to get more farmland into the land of farmers. And I'd also just note and point the commissioner's attention to a couple of other support letters in your packet from other folks involved in farmland conservation and farmland protection on the coast side. Thanks. I think I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ramirez, do you have any follow-up questions or comments? You have to unmute yourself.
There. So, Mr. Alstein, so going forward, I mean, do you think that you will be continuing to work with the Farm Bureau? Because obviously you have been in the past, I believe, you know, they've given you recommendations on how to, you know, work with farmers and, you know, with your land. I'm just concerned that, you know, you may be getting into a situation where they no longer want to work with you. So in general, I mean, are you still open to continue to work with them?
Yeah, absolutely. We have we come on and present on all kinds of projects that we do on the farmlands that we own, and the Farm Bureau often has, you know, really good suggestions, whether it's around some of the work we've done on farm worker housing, on lease structures. Occasionally we have new farmland that we acquire and are putting up for lease. So yeah, you know, unlike Mid-Penn, we don't have an obligation to come to the Farm Bureau, but we do find that it is helpful, both in the spirit of partnership and in terms of gaining good insight from those that have been managing lands for a long time as well.
Okay, so on this 400 acres that you currently have that you would like to pass along to farmers, with this project that we have, will this allow you to kind of, you know, do your subdivision so that you can start passing the land along to the farmers? Is that what the goal of this thing right now?
So this is a first step in that process. The farmland is spread across a couple of different properties, primarily Cloverdale Ranch and the Johnston Ranch up in Half Moon Bay. Mm-hmm. And on those properties, we have 6 or 7 different leasehold areas. So we've actually been working for 3 years prior to this point to try to complete a land division at Johnston Ranch that would allow us to sell the farmland to the farmer that's been leasing that land for decades. And just because of this current inconsistency between the state regulations and the local regulations, we've been unable to complete that. So this would allow us to then come back and actually go through the process of completing that land division, which would come back through the whole process here as Melissa described earlier. And Melissa, please clarify if I'm getting anything correct here. But we would still have to go through the whole review process for that land division through the Planning Commission, through the Board of Supervisors, as well as all the consultations that we do on the coast side.
Okay, and if you could just, I guess, reassure us, what I hear from the Ag Advisory Committee and the Farm Bureau is that they're concerned that, you know, you're gonna just hack up land and then run trails right through the middle of prime agricultural land. Can you say something a little bit about that? I mean, just to kind of reassure us where we are.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you. I appreciate that question, that clarification, and I think it'd be good for Mike to speak to this as well, but I'll take a first crack at it, which is to say that, you know, in general, what these land divisions achieve is keeping the farmland in farming, and then the upland rangeland areas that MidPen often takes through these transfers, they allow them to go through their planning process and develop trails that are compatible with the ongoing agricultural use on those rangelands. So in general, we do not, try to bring trails, as much as possible. We try to avoid prime farmland on our trail development because, and certainly, keep it away from housing and infrastructure that's really important for supporting, and water infrastructure that's really important for supporting those critical farmlands.
Okay.
No more questions or any comments?
Mr. Williams, I think Mr. Austin was expecting for you to add a little more to that question.
Yes, thank you very much. So first off, on mid-pen lands that are in agricultural uses, agriculture continues to be the primary use, with public trails being compatible uses that land with the existing rancher or farmer on those properties. And the open space district seeks to have a small public footprint on coastal lands. And with carefully planned trails, we'll be able to protect, provide for public access so that people may experience their protected public open space and understand where their local food is grown. But the trail needs to be done carefully with a farmer or rancher, so the impacts are minimal. And we have a mission that I think, as Melissa mentioned, that has several goals. And on the San Mateo coast, that is protecting viable agriculture, protecting and restoring the natural resource, and providing ecologically sensitive opportunities for public trails. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. No more questions from me, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Santa Cruz.
No question at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Gupta.
I'm listening to all my colleagues and their questions and answers. And to me, it appears that we are, I don't know, maybe this is part of the deliberation, but we are not constraining ourselves by the language of the regulations. So is there, Mr. Williams, is there anything you would like to see different in there? I know it's a very wide question, but any specificity there? Am I making sense in my question?
If I understand your question, they're about the text amendments.
Right.
We're comfortable with our application for the text amendments as put together by the county. And we think that, one, it complies with the State Coastal Act and as well as the local coastal program. And at the same time continues to provide a public review process through the county as well as through mid-pens committees and board of directors so that there's public input on all of these projects in the future, not only at the time of the land division application, but when we do our future public trail planning. So I'm very comfortable with staff as proposed. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm sure from what you propose, or from the time what you proposed, it may have changed some, right? With the different agencies giving their inputs. Is that true? But you say you are comfortable.
Yes, there have been some modifications. The county retains the ability to review any agricultural or conservation easements that Mid-Penn or Post would place on a transfer to a private property owner, a private farmer. And we're supportive of that change. And we're comfortable with where we're at on this process at this juncture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. No more questions, Chair.
Commissioner Ketchum, do you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions.
Okay, so we're in the deliberation point of our meeting. My initial is I would support what is being proposed here. I actually find it is the highest access opportunity that is given to us, and we should take advantage of it. It's in one sense, I want to avoid the balkanization of farms and everything. This is allowed for these odd pieces to move to where they can be better managed and appreciated. I also know there's a long history, particularly in places like Ireland and England and Sweden, where the right of trespass through farmland has been historical, and I have taken advantage of it. And it's really a positive thing for the farming community, because those of us who live in urban areas, getting out and experiencing what farmers do, we become more protective and desire that that culture maintains and remains strong. And so having a trail access that goes through these things, I see this as very, very positive. So my initial, unless someone else is going to throw something out there that I hadn't thought about, is to support this amendment. Any who would like to?
Okay. Yeah, along those lines, Chairman, I'm going to say that I don't see any discrepancy between, the public being able to enjoy some of this land, farmland, by going to some of these places and visiting, and having a way to be able to get there. I think it's extremely important that not just the people that live in that rural area get to see the beauty of what we have here in the coast, and that the rest of the public here, the rest of the peninsula actually has an opportunity to enjoy, go out there and learn about what the farmers are doing, and learn where the food is coming from, and just enjoy the beauty of what we have here in this part of the world. So having been one of those people that when I was a young person also worked in farms, and I used to cross from farm to farm, kind of like they do in Europe. I think it's an absolutely good thing for everybody to be able to enjoy. So I'm very much in favor of supporting this. I don't see any negative side to it. So with that, I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Commissioner Santa Cruz?
Yes, President Hansen. It's like, by reviewing Melissa's presentation, which, by the way, was a very excellent presentation, Melissa, I congratulate you. I don't usually do that because most people do that perfunctory. You say, great presentation. But this time, it was a truly good presentation. I really appreciate you were very clear and concise, and it made me understood exactly the points that you're trying to convey, and that's very awesome for a presenter. You know, I see that this project result in consistency of language. It doesn't remove the requirement of zoning, if I understood correctly, and streamline the process for streamline the process to protect the type of land. And I am also in full support of this project, and I think it's an opportunity to basically clear all these inconsistencies that we need to move this type of land forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Ketchum.
Yes, I too strongly support this project. I think I'm all for consistency. The fact that they're using the language verbatim that's found in the Coastal Act. Also, it was interesting to note that the RM district, you know, outside the coastal zone, provides a similar exemption. No reason to have this be different. And just, you can't have too many trails. I mean, this idea that, you know, there's already enough trails, I object. And I think that Mid-Penn provides the best trails we have in this county, the whole experience, where they go and the way they're built. And so I support the project.
Thank you. Commissioner Gupta.
I'm in support of the project. I'm ready to make a motion.
Great.
Commissioner or Chairman Hansen, were we going to open public comment one more time, or were we done with that portion?
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
Were we going to open public comment one more time, or are we done with that portion?
We're done with public comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So I get the motion. We've got.
Can we bring up the Janet? Can we bring up the language for the motion?
Melissa, do you have that handy? Just a moment, please.
So the Planning Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors approve the LCP amendment subject to Coastal Commission certification. And also the Planning Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution directing staff to submit the LCP amendment for California Coastal Commission certification.
A second.
Okay, we have the motion and a second. Will everybody please vote, and we'll follow up with a roll call. I say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Janet?
Commissioner Ramirez?
Aye.
Commissioner Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Commissioner Ketchum?
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta?
Aye.
Chairman Hansen?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fox, I see you unmuted yourself. Did you want to comment?
No, I simply wanted, as a procedural matter, to point out that when the law requires a roll call vote, you don't need to do a voice vote followed by a roll call vote. You can just call for a roll call.
Okay, thank you.
But it's your option. You can do it either way.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, so this has been approved unanimously. It goes to the Board of Supervisors. Next set of processes. We will now proceed to our final item on the agenda. And Janet, can you read that in, please?
Item number 3, owner applicant Jaime Verdura, file number PLN 2018-00401, location Lawanda Road, San Gregorio, and the project planner is Laura Richstone.
Hi, Laura here. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Great. All right. Thank you, Janet. Good morning. I'm Laura Richstone, the planner associated with this project. I'll provide a brief summary of the project and its compliance with regulations, and then I'll be available for any questions the commission may have. There we go. So the project before you is for the construction of a new 2-story, 4,504 square foot residence with an attached 947 square foot three-car garage. The construction of a driveway and a fire truck turnaround on an undeveloped parcel off of Lawanda Road, Highway 84 in San Gregorio. 4,334 cubic yards of grading is also proposed to accommodate the project, with the majority of this work associated with the driveway and the fire truck turnaround. So the project parcel, as I said, is located in San Gregorio. Here's a quick map of it. It's west of Lawanda, and it's roughly between Lawanda and the ocean, to give some reference. So here is an aerial of the parcel. It's accessed via a shared driveway off of Highway 84, so it's not right on the highway. And it sits between 2 parcels that are already developed with single-family residences. So here's a site plan of the proposed project. As stated, the parcel right now is vacant, and it's mostly composed of non-native grasses. There's an intermittent creek in the rear, which is light blue in color to the left. And then the required 30-foot setback from that creek is denoted in the darker blue color. The edge of the creek's associated woodland is denoted in this lighter green color. And the proposed residence is orange, and the driveway and fire truck turnaround are in these darker gray colors. So per the site plan, the house will be located in the rear portion of the parcel to accommodate a proposed dry hay farming operation, in the front portion of the parcel to the right, which is this yellow gold color. Due to the presence of the creek in the rear, or at the rear of the parcel, staff required a bio report, and the biologist identified a few key habitats, mostly that the parcel, as I said, is composed of non-native grasslands, and the intermittent rear. And there are small patches in blue and purple on this graphic that represent Baccharis, I hope I said that right, scrub and coastal scrub habitat, along with some dusky woodrat middens identified in those yellow dots in the woodland. The proposed construction would result in the loss of approximately 1,300 square feet of scrub habitat. And to mitigate for this loss, the applicant has proposed to restore 3,900 square feet of habitat in the rear of the property. This restoration has a 5-year habitat plan, which the applicant submitted, that was prepared by a biologist. And this habitat restoration plan includes regular updates and performance measures to ensure that the restoration is successful. And just to note that no impact is expected to occur to the Woodrats in the Woodlands, because construction is located well away from that area. So pictured here very quickly are the floor plans for the proposed residence. The garage is located in the upper left, and the majority of the living space for this residence is on the first floor. And then here's the second floor. It's located above the garage, and it contains a bonus room and a bunk room and a bathroom. Here are some elevations of the proposed residence as seen from the front, which is the top picture, and the rear, which is the bottom picture. And elevations as seen from the left on top and the right on the bottom. So just a note that this property is not under Williamson Act contract and contains no prime soils. The single-family residences are allowed in the PAD with the issuance of a PAD permit. As illustrated earlier on the site plan, the house has been set farther back in the property to accommodate the hay farming operation in the front, but adheres still to the setback and height standards for this district as outlined in the chart. For the grading of the project, as I said, the project proposes 4,334 cubic yards of grading, and most of this is associated with the driveway and fire truck turnarounds. While grading quantities on site could be reduced if the house was located closer to the front of the parcel in the flatter areas. This would place the residents in the area where they plan to do dry hay farming. And if they place the residents there, the likelihood or possibility of future agriculture on site is diminished because it's harder to farm steeper areas. So placing this structure in the rear of the property, while it does lead to more grading, helps protect this future viability of agriculture on this project or on this parcel. The project adheres to the general plan and LCB policies regarding visual, historical, and sensitive habitats, and includes mitigation measures requiring pre-construction surveys, inclusionary wildlife fencing, and the timing of development outside of rainy season to reduce impacts of construction to less than significant levels. The project conforms to the grading regulations through the required erosion and dust control measures and has been reviewed by our Geotech and drainage departments for compliance with regulations. And once again, the project site does not contain any prime soils, and the construction of the residence would not impact any agricultural activities on the project site or adjacent parcels. Staff received one public comment during the noticing period regarding the proposed septic system and possible impacts to neighboring properties. I reached out to our environmental health department, to discuss this concern, and they stated that the proposed septic plans are conceptual at this point, which is typical of the planning stage, and that the property can support and has the space to provide a septic system. Environmental health added that they had previously included a condition of approval requiring compliance with the OMS septic regulations, which among many other things requires at least 100-foot setback from the septic lines to any well and 50 feet from any septic lines to any property line. And these conservative setbacks ensure that septic flows do not impact neighboring properties or water sources. In compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, an initial study and mitigated negative declaration were prepared and circulated for this project. The comment period for this document started on April 1st and ended on April 21st, 2020. No public comments were received during this period, and mitigation measures from this document have been included as conditions of approval listed in Attachment A. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and approve the coastal development permit, planned agricultural district permit, and grading permit based on and subject to the required findings and conditions of approval listed in Attachment A. This concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I also appreciate that you broke up the PDFs on the websites where I can load down high quality things to reviews, and that was just fine. Thank you. I'll now open it up for the commissioners for any questions, and I'll start off with Commissioner Ketchum.
So the condition of approval to paint the house with, where is it? Earth tone colors to blend in with surrounding grassland. So my question is, once the building permit has been final, can the house then be repainted any color? Is there any time frame on this at all?
Yes, so that's a typical condition that's placed on projects within either a design review district or a scenic corridor, which this property is located. We do require color verification at final. However, the property owner can sometime after repaint the house whatever color, but that would be in violation of the conditions of approval. And if the county is notified, we would have the opportunity to require the owner to repaint their house back to what they were approved for.
And that goes on forever? That ability?
Yes. Yes.
Would this be in any zoning district or any scenic corridor that the county has that ability?
So with design review, in which the county has purview over the look of something, we have this ability to regulate the color, and also in scenic corridors where the county looks at protects that corridor as seen from the road or what have you. So we have that ability also to require a residence to be painted a certain way, and if it does not comply with that condition, we have the ability to have the property owner paint it back.
All right, so just make sure I understand, any project that's gone through design review or in a design review district and had that requirement, or in a project in the scenic corridor that
let me jump in on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioner Ketchum, and thank you, Laura, for that presentation. I agree with Laura's answer, but I would say that the real enforcement authority lies within the permit conditions. So any permit that's been issued that is conditioned on certain coloration, those conditions run with the land. Now, you know, I agree with Laura too, that if there's a condition of approval that requires a certain color, we have the ability to take enforcement action. I wouldn't do so lightly. I have the ability to authorize minor modifications, and I would, you know, seek to work with the landowner to try and resolve the issue as fairly as possible. But yeah, it's the condition of approval that gives me that authority.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gupta, do you have any questions?
Yes. I'm looking at my questions, and I think, no, I don't have any questions for Laura at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Santa Cruz, you have any questions? Staff, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Laura. One, and maybe I wasn't really putting too much attention, but the truck turnaround, I assume when they do this type of project, they make sure they have the same capacity to have like a fire truck turn around easily on the turnaround. Is that something that we review when we approve this type of project?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, so this project is reviewed by County Fire, CAL FIRE, and they review the fire truck turnaround to make sure that it can accommodate a full fire truck. So if a fire truck gets there, it can put out a fire and then turn around safely and leave.
Okay, and then another question is, can you elaborate or expand a little bit on the regulation compliance for local coastal permit regarding the agricultural sensitive habitat?
Yeah, so there are sensitive habitats on the site. The stream in the rear of the property and the woodlands in the rear. The house has been set back quite a distance from those two sensitive habitats. I believe it's over 90 feet at minimum. I can go back to the slide. But they have avoided those sensitive habitats they have also placed the structure such that it complies with our agricultural zoning and saves the flattest part of the land for future agricultural activities. Because once a house is kind of placed somewhere, it's hard to move it. So we aim with property owners to place houses such that it respects the sensitive biology of the property, but also leaves areas for agriculture in the future. Speaking to that, the applicant also submitted, as I said, a habitat restoration plan to restore some of the scrub that will be lost due to the construction, and that scrub habitat would be restored at the rear of the property to provide habitat continuity with everything else on at the rear, because right now it's disjointed and in little patches on the existing grassland. And just to note that most of the property will remain vacant after the construction, either vacant or under agricultural use, with only, I think, like 4% dedicated to the house and the driveway.
Okay, Laura, and the last question is, do we have a limitation of the size of the housing to be built in those types of areas?
There is no FAR or lot coverage maximums in this district. So what controls the size of the house is the height and the setbacks. That's the controls that we have.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to speak or give a presentation?
Hello?
You are muted by host.
Yes. What's happening?
I don't know.
Is your time machine?
Did the applicant want to speak on this item?
No, I'm good.
Are you?
Does the commission have any questions for the applicant?
No.
I do.
Okay. Commissioner Gupta?
Okay, so my question is there any structure on the parcel at this time?
No.
There's nothing there?
Nothing there.
Okay, all right. And in the report, there were mentions of possible erosion. I don't know about flooding. Are there any history or concerns about that on the property?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
No. Okay. How long have you owned it, if I may ask?
3 years? Just a little under 3 years.
Okay. Okay. And there has been no history of any of those
No.
issues to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, no.
Yeah. Okay. So I see that you are going to be building or legalizing one of those wells to make it a domestic well.
Yep.
Is that correct? Right.
Yes.
My understanding is correct. Yeah. Right. Okay. What about for the electricity? Is that already there?
I don't think there's any electrical to it's vacant land, so there's no electricity there.
It's a vacant land. Okay.
Right.
All right. So are part of your plans include putting solar panels?
I believe that's a new ordinance for any new construction after 2020. I'm not 100% on that.
Okay. So you haven't thought about that?
We haven't got that far, just trying to get it approved and then we can move forward. Right.
Okay. Okay. But your two neighbors or neighbors they do have single family homes on there, right? So
Correct.
they have, right. So they have electricity and thing.
That's correct.
So, okay. And then there's a big area that has been left out for future farming. So are there any plans at this point, or that area has just been left open?
That area is left open currently, but we're planning to dry farm hay.
Okay. So would that involve any kind of housing for agricultural workers? Or,
No.
No, nothing like that. Okay. Any earthquake issues on the property?
Again, nothing I'm aware of. We've had geotech
Not that
reports.
you-
Yeah.
Okay.
Oil looks good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, your design looks good. Thank you so much. No
Thank
more
you.
questions.
Okay. No other further questions. We'll go to the public portion. Do you have anybody wishing to speak to this item, Janet?
Thank you, Chair Hansen. This is Sukhmani assisting Janet Lujan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment on item number 3 to please raise your hand now. Those who are joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Mr. Chair, right now I don't see any hands raised. So actually I do see, no, they took it away. Give me 10 more seconds. Let me see if anybody else raises their hand. Chair Hansen, I've called upon all raised hands for now. None of them have raised their hands, so we're good to proceed. No public comment.
Thank you. Given that we opened up this opportunity, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion.
And I
Second.
say that there was no written comment for this item either.
Thank you very much. Oh, wait a minute.
There's somebody raising their hand.
You turned off your mic, Fred.
There we go. I have a message here saying I'm raising my hand from D. Freeman.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, that person did raise their hand, but they took it down. So they lowered their hand. Unless that person wants to talk again, maybe they can raise their hand again if they want to talk.
Asking right now where the microphone.
She's asking where's the microphone.
Yes, yes, I want to.
Okay, so I will give them permission to talk now. So Mr. Freeman, please accept to talk. And Mr. Freeman, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line, and it's
sorry about that.
It's not Mr. Freeman.
Sorry about that, ma'am.
That's Dr. Freeman to you. Yes, I just had a couple of questions for Jaime. I did raise the septic tank or leach line question with Janet earlier on with respect to how it aligns with my well. I think we've sorted that out. But the question for Jaime Verdura is, how high is that retaining wall? I can't find the specs on the drawings.
Which are you referring?
There's a retaining wall around the bottom, the south side.
Excuse me. Questions are directed to the commission, only to the commission.
Okay.
We defer either to the applicant or staff to follow up.
Okay, so my question is, the south neighbor is, how tall is the retaining wall? And then an additional comment, which is during the winter, there is a large amount of water runoff. I wouldn't call it flooding but it can be enough that it comes down in sheets. So I just wanted the commission to be aware of that.
Do you have any more comments?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any more who wish to speak to this item? If so, please raise your hand so we can recognize you.
Chair, no more raised hands.
Okay, we'll now entertain a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Before closing, Commissioner Hanson, she asked the question. So are we gonna respond to the question about retaining wall before closing public comments? Is that the intention?
We'll do that after we close public comment.
Okay, great, thank
All
you.
questions first, and then we have the appropriate person's answer.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Roll call.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Commissioner Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ketchum,
Yes.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Chairman Hanson.
Aye. So we had some questions. Would staff or the applicant wish to answer this directly? Let's start with the staff.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Is that a question you can answer, or should we ask the applicant about it?
Oh, yes. For the retaining walls, from my recollection, the retaining walls essentially around the whole house and the driveway. From the driveway, they're about 2 to 3 feet, and then they get taller as they get to the house. I believe the tallest retaining wall was about 9 or 10 feet in the rear to side area around the house. But I will say that the maximum height of a retaining wall in this district would be the maximum height allowed for a house, since it's so far away from any setback, technically. So the height of the walls fall within the regulations.
Okay. Does anybody else have any follow-up questions?
Nope.
I missed it, Laura. How high is that? Would be in feet?
I believe it's a 36-foot maximum height in this district. So that
36?
Yes. And the house right now is about 24, 25 feet. And the retaining walls are at the highest point, about 9 or 10.
Oh, thank you.
I need a clarification, Laura. So the size of the house is 24, you said? The height of the house is 24? And then there's about 9 feet over that, or 9 feet all total?
Oh, the house is 24, and then the wall is 9 feet. So nothing is taller than the house.
Okay, is that a good requirement for the concern that had Dr. Freeman regarding the flooding, or not flooding, but the fact that it may be erosion or something?
I'm not sure if the retaining walls impact the erosion. I will say that the county does have drainage regulations that require new development to reduce runoff and reduce erosion, such that it's at pre-construction levels. So if there's existing erosion on site right now when there's no development, that's just natural. That will be taken into account when the permit comes in for building and all of those calculations are done. I don't know the extent to which we would require the owner to fix that. I think that is the owner's response. It's up to the owner to do that.
So then this may be, as the projects develop, it may be a further requirement or a further review of the specific issue that Dr. Freeman's raised.
Yes, it will be reviewed during our drainage section during building permit submittal. The sheet flows and everything on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Any follow-up? Okay. Any discussion or recommendations?
May I?
Please.
Yeah, just to say that I think it's actually a nice project. I think it was well designed. You know, it is a big house, but again, this is sitting in such a large lot that, you know, there's no issues with regards to, you know, encumbering on somebody else's property and or sites and anything like that. So again, no issues on the size of the house. I think it's good to see that they're trying to place it in the least impactful area of the entire lot of the land, so that yeah, any you know, problems or does not diminish the productivity of the land, as they're planning to use it for hay growing or whatever other uses they're going to give it. So that's good. I think overall, I think it's a good project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just want to add.
Are you done?
No. You see him?
When I looked for design review of the project, I thought it was a very nice design. I thought the fireplace was very, very creative. I thought that was a great design. I'm in support of this, and I'll basically, seeing most heads nod approval, I'm looking for a motion for acceptance and a second.
I'll make the motion. That we certify the initial study and mitigated negative declaration and approve the coastal development permit, planned agricultural district permit, and grading permit by making the required findings and adopting the recommended conditions of approval as listed in attachment A of the staff report. I see now that does not include the PLN number. Should I have included that in my wording?
Please do.
Oh, thank you. For county file number PLN 2018-00401.
Thank you.
I second.
All right, so roll call.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Commissioner Santa Cruz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ketchum,
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Chairman Hansen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and we'll move on to our next item, which is correspondence matters.
Hello, commissioners. How's my video feed? Okay. Let me know if we run into any problems. So I have no correspondence to report to you today, nor am I recommending the study session for our next meeting. We have a full agenda for our next meeting. There's actually 4 items on the agenda right now, including the continuation of the Mid-Peninsula Housing Project at Cypress Point. The other 3 items include coastal development permit for a new single-family residence in Moss Beach. Also, a new single-family residence in Miramar, as well as a recommended ordinance amendment to the county's density bonus ordinance to bring it in line with state housing law.
Okay.
So unless there's questions about the next meeting, I'll move on to the director's report.
For the Cypress Point, since that's a continuation, we'll be moving directly into responses from all the questions that were raised from at our Half Moon Bay session.
That's correct. The focus of the staff report will be on responding to all the questions and issues that were raised at the last meeting.
Hey, thank you.
Steve?
Yes.
Question. Would we be entertaining any correspondence on that Cypress Point project?
Oh, absolutely. The public's welcome to submit written comments, and we will be reviewing those as they come in.
Okay, okay. So I would request that even any of the past ones, because Janet has been sending those to us. If you could send all of them together so that we have everything. Thank you, Janet.
Yes. And I recall the request that we try and organize the report using tables of contents, so we will strive to make it as readable as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with regard to the director's report, I wanted to make sure the commission was aware of some upcoming public meetings regarding Connect the Coastside. The first one will occur during the day this Saturday, and that is an overview of the project as a whole. And then there will be 2 follow-up meetings, one focused on the southern portion of the coast side closer to Half Moon Bay, and then one focused more on the Moss Beach on Montera areas. So all that information is available on the Connect the Coastside website. I also wanted to update you on the last Board of Supervisors meeting. They took 2 actions in favor of upholding Planning Commission decisions that had been appealed to them. That included an appeal of the denial of the Purissima Cemetery. And it also included the denial of an appeal of the Irfan non-conforming use permit and coastal development permit for a new home on a substandard lot in Miramar. That was one where the commission made sure that there was a minimum side setback totaling 15 feet when you added both sides together. They had proposed only 14, and we conditioned it to require 15, and that was upheld by the Board of Supervisors. So then the only other thing I wanted to cover in the director's report today was just to update you on our services plan. There hasn't been any major change since we last met. The department continues to offer all of its typical services, but we're doing so remotely. We have a few folks who are coming into the office on occasion as needed to take care of some items that can't be done remotely, but for the most part, we're able to maintain a fully remote workforce. As far as meeting the needs of the public and their demands for service, we're trying to keep tabs on that. I have a proposal that's pending right now to create a new kiosk area on the first floor of the building that the Planning and Building Department is currently located in. Hopefully it will be mobile and we can actually roll it outside on nice days. And it will have, plexiglass screens and will provide an opportunity for face-to-face interactions with the public to answer their questions or determine what, if any, services they're having trouble completing. So that's the plan right now, and I will be actually meeting with the unions to discuss that probably next week, and I'll keep you posted on how that goes. But I would say the bottom line is we have been able to successfully transition to a remote workforce, and we continue to do the work that we are responsible for doing. So I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Actually, yeah, a follow-up to what you just said. So I have a neighbor who wants to redo his roof, and he tried to communicate with the county so that he can get a permit for a re-roof, but he was not able to get through. So I don't know exactly what he was doing, but is there, because he tried to call and he tried to do it online, but he said he was not successful on doing that.
That's unfortunate, but yeah, we will have staff that can help him out. Re-roof permits are a simple online permit to pull. And so if he's having technical difficulties, I'll be happy to connect him with someone on staff who can walk him through that process. Do you want to just forward me his contact information?
I will. Okay.
I'll do
that. All right.
Great.
Yeah, Steve, is that number clearly posted on the website where they could contact a live person?
Oh, yes. Actually, let's go there right now. If you guys are on screen, you can go to the Planning and Building website, and you'll see we have an update about our services. Get there. So there's a couple sites that are relevant to this issue. Of course, there's the main site for the that the county is maintaining, which has a lot of information regarding county programs in general. But if you go to the Planning and Building website and you click on the blue bar that says Department Services Update, it takes you to the page that gives you instructions on how to access our services. It's not, it's all based, I'm seeing here now that it's all based on our website and email addresses. So in terms of phone numbers, I need to go to a different, oh, here's the contact page. And so, yeah, the main number, of course, is 650-363-4161. But the other one that we're monitoring on a regular basis is the 599-7310. So yeah, that'd probably be the fastest way, Commissioner Ramirez, is just have them call 599-7310, and somebody should get back to him immediately. If he has any further problem after that, just get him in touch with me and I'll help him out.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
That's great.
Any further questions and comments from commissioners?
None.
Okay.
I had one question, comment. At one time, we had talked about Commissioner Ketchum providing us with some areas where we could drive and have a first-hand look. Was that for the Cypress Point
It was
project?
for Cypress Point.
Right.
That's correct. And was there a map we were supposed to forward?
I didn't. I never sent it. Sorry, I didn't know if there was any interest really, because I hadn't heard anybody say, "Oh yeah, do send that." I think it's very helpful, and also because of Connect the Coast Side, informational meetings to particularly for Moss Beach, and so this encompasses both the Cypress Point project and the proposed improvements for that commercial area in Moss Beach, to actually go there and maybe even get out and walk a little, because if you look at a map at just where the roads run, you would think, oh, this looks like a good route, why not use that? But if you're on the ground and you look and you see, oh my goodness, that's a steep hill, I'm not going to go up there, I'd rather go this other way. So it's very helpful to and then also to see the angles of the roads where they meet the highway, where we have a legacy of a 100-year-old subdivision, which was later turned in, along a railroad, which was later turned into a highway, and some of those are rather dangerous. So a visit, you don't really need a map. It's just that well, I'll send something. And
would that be okay, Steve, if we?
Oh, absolutely. I think
it's
an
shared
excellent
with the
suggestion.
commissioners.
Oh,
yeah, maybe
yes.
it'll just be a graphic from the, I think Joe Leclerc is going to make a presentation at MCC tonight, and he has some graphics in his slides, maybe something from that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I think that's a great suggestion. I've done the walking tour many times myself, and it's extremely informative, and I think it'd be worth all your while to see it.
Okay. Chair Hansen does that all the time.
Anything to get out of the house.
Well,
Thank
in fact, I suggest we do it all together, but that would be breaking the order. So.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Not this time.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll move to adjournment and then see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
a
right.
lot.
Thank you for a good
Bye.
meeting.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great meeting,
Bye.
guys. Thank you. Adios.